Hi everybody, my name is Tyler Blackwell. I'm here for another edition of Rostie Talks. Joined today by Kevin Suitor, Chief Marketing Officer at Tello IP. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tyler.
I have Kevin here. He's a long-standing friend of our CEO, Cynthia Rostie, so we thought it would be a great idea to have him on the show to tell us a little bit about himself. So, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been in the tech industry for a little over 35 years now. I started as a co-op sales student out of Algonquin College back in the early 80s. And my first job was running around Eastern Ontario selling test measurement equipment into Bell Canada and companies like that. From there, I moved up the ranks within that organization to lead the organization as VP of Sales. I did that across a 4-year term and did my own startup. I did a company called DCI, Digital Communications Inc., which I sold off to TELoIP in 1991. And then I started with a company out of Montreal in 1993 called CTI Datacom. And we started in Montreal and we grew and expanded across the country to have 6 offices across the country, very focused on building Canada's premier data communications system integrator and distributor company in the late 90s, during the real boom for routing and routers and gigabit Ethernet, Ethernet switching, things of that nature. Into 2000, I joined a company, a California-based startup called Coppercom. That got me in the voice over DSL and soft switching business. And had a unique opportunity to join a ground floor startup here in the Toronto area, based out of Markham. I literally started in a little garage up in Markham called Redline Communications, and we built that business over 5 years, 6 years to be the second fastest growing company in North America in tech.
Great.
We were on the Fast 50, number 2 in Fast 50 in 2006. We went IPO on the AIM exchange, IPO on the TSX, and I left Redline in 2010 and joined a company called Exinda, and spent 7 years at Exinda. And the last year I've spent working as the Chief Marketing Officer at another Canadian startup called Tello IP in the software-defined networking space. So that's a long. When you work 35 years, you get a longer intro than probably the norm.
So with a resume like that, where was the starting point? At what point when you were a young man did you find that, you know what, I think I want to get into the tech industry? Was there a certain point where you realized that was sort of the calling for you? Or were there a few other jobs that you might have done as a young man that sort of led you in that direction?
So I actually was raised in the Ottawa area. Okay. And so, you know, if you grow up in Ottawa and you were growing up in Ottawa in the 70s, it was dominated by Bell Northern Research. It was dominated by Northern Telecom. And you had the beginnings of the tech boom with Mitel starting up and companies of that nature. And so it just struck me as I was sitting packing groceries and doing, you know, service jobs in the service industry that maybe it'd be better to go and get a tech degree. Okay. And so I went to Algonquin and got that degree, really as a means to get into what I perceived as being, you know, a more explosive and very energetic market. Gotcha.
Okay. Now, Tello IP, you are the Chief Marketing Officer. For those viewers out there who aren't aware of what Tello IP specifically does, could you give us a little bit of a breakdown as to your everyday services and products that you offer?
Sure. So Tello IP is, you know, the class of business is called software-defined networks. And really, you know, probably everybody has heard of companies like Cisco and Juniper.
Correct.
So Cisco and Juniper are both looking at how do I leave, I'm anchored in hardware-based appliances. How do I leave this hardware-based world enjoying the virtualized world of a software-defined product? So basically move from hardware, like VMware has taken the compute industry and data centers from hardware to virtualization. We're looking at taking the networking space from hardware-based routers and switches into a virtualized environment.
Okay.
Now, the real impetus of this is, how do I create an environment for the typical small business owner who needs to connect multiple offices and do it very inexpensively? We've looked at the problem and we've decided to solve the problem by using the internet. Right? We all use the internet at home.
Yeah.
It's a great technology space for us at home. We figured out how to build a private wide area network for businesses that allow them to create a private WAN for their businesses, provide direct cloud connectivity for cloud services like Office 365, Salesforce, things of that nature that people use every day in the business context.
Okay.
And so the business in a nutshell is deliver that wide area experience where you need to connect and interconnect multiple offices at 50% of the price with 10 times the performance of today's current MPLS-based networks with routers at the edge.
Okay. Now, over the last few years, I'm sure that all of this technology of going from hardware to digital has really come to play. What are the big benefits other than cost that are driving small business owners to want to go from that hardware to a digital platform?
Well, there's only one scarce resource in life, and that's time. So if you think about a small business, or even a mid-market, or even some of the smaller large businesses, what you're looking at doing is trying to be very elastic, very agile in your business model. You might want to open up, say you're a retailer, I need to be opening up 2 or 3 new stores. In the legacy networking environment, you would have to call a service provider. In the United States, that might be AT&T. Here in Canada, Bell Canada,
yeah.
Right? And say, please, Mr. Service Provider, I'd like to have a 10 or 100 meg connection to my facility. And they would get back to you in 5 to 7 days and set up an appointment 2 to 3 weeks later. And who knows, 2, 3, 4 months from now, you might actually have a circuit.
Right, okay.
Okay? The alternative is, you can go onto a website, you can order an internet feed from, say, Rogers Cable and a Bell DSL. So I've got now 2 carriers providing connections.
Right.
I can come to a company like Tello IP and I can create a smart overlay, sort of like Netflix.
Gotcha.
Right? If you think about Netflix in the cable industry, what we do in essence is do what Netflix does. We allow you to use existing technology, right? So you already have a cable feed, an internet feed going into your house. Imagine the same thing going into your business. Same high speeds, right? Typically in business, you end up with a really puny feed feeding your business. You go home, you've got, 50, 100, maybe even now today a gig feeding your house. Well, we're allowing you to take that consumer benefit, bring it over to your business, put a smart overlay on it, put a couple of service providers underneath, and now I can give you the same quality network that a Bell Canada or an AT&T will quote over MPLS. I can give you that 5 nines uptime experience at the cost of broadband internet.
Wow.
And that's the magic of what we're doing at Tello IP. I'm extremely excited about that.
Good.
You might be able to tell.
I can tell, yeah. And I mean, that's good. If you can go to work every day and enjoy what you're doing and be excited about it, it's almost like it's not work at all.
It isn't.
Well, that's great. I'm glad, because there's very few people in the world who can say that they really enjoy what they do on a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 basis. So I'm very happy that you found exactly what sort of makes you really enjoy the work that you do. I know you mentioned time is one large essence that has been a driving force. Obviously, cost effectiveness is something that will affect a small business owner. Is there anything that you see maybe over the next 5 to 10 years within the industry that are going to change the way that your business is run on maybe a larger scale, or something very small that might add to it?
I think there are a couple of things that I believe are going to be really important. One is this move to the cloud. So this move to a shared service environment, and I've looked at a bunch of studies, and it seems to indicate to me right now that we're only 10% of the way to the migration to the cloud.
Right.
Right. So in spite of how big it's become and how everybody hears about the cloud every day, we've just started. It's still baby steps.
Right.
It's infancy days. Right. So there's still a big way to go there. Right behind the cloud, Internet of Things. This ability. I was I was looking last night at a little video from a conference over in Europe, and they were showing a little device. Today it costs about $20 to manufacture. They believe they're going to be able to get the cost down to 20 cents. That the minute you tear open the envelope, it will send a text to the sender to say the envelope's been received.
Wow.
This ability to monitor and censor and provide an immediate closed-loop feedback through Internet of Things and sensing, I think that's going to be another really big thing that will impact everybody's lives over the next 5 years. Third major trend that I think is really interesting to watch, and I'm watching very closely because I see some ways that we perhaps can use it within the software-defined infrastructure, is AI, artificial intelligence, and the use of bots and things of that nature to really look at patterns and data. So it almost ties big data as part of it, but I think you really need big data and you need AI. And so those two are sort of, they work together to get you where you need to go. And so that's, I could probably keep going with tech things that are interesting, but those, I think that gives you sort of a sense of where it's at. I mean, we're just at this really cool inflection point. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years, and I don't see change ending on really cool stuff.
Yeah.
For another, I mean, there's 10, 20 years of really cool things still to come.
Now, do you see any detriments to us becoming so dependent on technology to not only operate our businesses and to protect ourselves? Is there anything that may come up that you anticipate may be a detriment or an obstacle that for your service and your industry that you'll have to come across and maybe implement a way of fixing that problem?
I think, you know, we all, and we're going to continue to struggle with this, is privacy and data sovereignty issues.
Right.
You know, how much data that is shared and available publicly to everybody. I think that's probably and should be an overarching concern for everybody. I get concerned when I see some of the changes that are happening at border entry points and things of that nature, just based on people, you know, making indications they want to go start to look at what you're doing on your phone and things of that nature. Your digital footprint, I think, is increasingly going to be something that people as an individual should be concerned about.
And do you guys have something in place that'll be able to alleviate that pressure that one would feel?
That's not a problem that we directly solve.
Right.
Our network, however, is fully encrypted edge to edge.
Okay.
So as you build a Tello IP SD-WAN infrastructure, you are getting a fully encrypted mesh network, including if your remote intelligent workers who are off working independently are connected in using our remote access service. So our RAS service encrypts traffic from their mobile phone or their iPad or their laptop into our points of entry, connects them directly into the private WAN, and all of that is done on a fully encrypted basis.
Okay.
So from that viewpoint, we secure and encrypt the edge, or the edges, as a big thing. We haven't natively started to look and dealt with the privacy and data following and things of that nature kind of concerns that I think I was alluding to earlier in the conversation. Those are outside of our scope. It's just as a technologist thinking about the problem set, I worry about those things.
Right. Now, this connectivity between all devices and all locations within one company, is this all going to be done in real time? For example, if I was to make an update on my phone, would a colleague of mine, maybe in a different city, would they see this all change immediately?
If you're using a central cloud-based service application and everybody was connected in the same WAN and you were replicating in real time, this would happen in real time. In fact, you know, for me to join the Tello IP RAS, it's as easy as when I open up my iPhone. I go up to settings, I go to VPN, I flip the VPN switch. The minute that connects, I'm now part of the Tello IP network.
Wow, okay.
Okay, and so I can be productive wherever I work, live, and play.
Makes life easy.
It does.
Good, that's great. Now, as a small business owner, where do I find Tello IP. How do I find you if all of a sudden I was looking to inquire about your services?
Well, we're pretty much we're on social media. We have a Twitter account at Tello IP, Facebook page Tello IP, on LinkedIn, company page on LinkedIn is Tello IP, or you can go old-fashioned on our website www.teloip.com, TELoIP.com.
Perfect. Now, at the start of the show, I did mention that Kevin did have a relationship with our CEO, Cynthia Rostie. Kevin, would you mind telling us, dating back to how your relationship started out with Rostie and Associates, with the Rostie Group?
Sure. So in late '92, when I was starting with CTI Datacom and we were opening up the facilities here in Toronto, I actually met Cynthia as a recruiter. We were in a different shared office space at the time than the one we're sitting in today. But I hired Cynthia to recruit our director of sales for the Toronto office, and that began a relationship. We eventually, I guess 3 times had offices inside Queens Quay Executive Center or one of the executive centers. I've used the business offices when they had offices in Boston. I would use the facility when I traveled to the Boston office as well. I've used the virtual office environment for certain states, and I continue to use the shared meeting space. So as we run quarterly business reviews, things of that nature over time, this has sort of been a home point to land and run different business events through over the course of many years.
Now, what is it about the shared business atmosphere or setting that's really drawn you throughout your career to wanting to host your businesses or the businesses that you've been working for in this type of setting?
I think it's interesting to have a dynamic community of other entrepreneurs in the space that you're in. If you're in a smaller company, sometimes you get caught up in just that small company stuff. And when you've got a broader context and you're right downtown. I mean, the facility here at Queens Quay is tremendous because it's so close to the GO train. It's easily off the Gardiner. So if you're driving, you can get to it easily. I met today with people who were actually leaving on the train. And so they just walked up and got on the train. Right? So from the point of view of a communications hub, it's just in a great location to act as a hub for business. We've, as I said, I've done everything from having a single, office, dedicated office. We had a shared team room here at Exinda that, we had, I think, 24 employees working out of this space, and we looked at it at the Exinda time as we could have our own space, but we didn't have the flexibility. If we needed to have 3 or 4 meetings at the same time, there were enough shared meeting facilities here that we could actually run the broad mix of things we needed to do. But at the same time, we weren't paying for that all the time to sit idle on the 24 days a month that wasn't necessary. We just used it the 6 days we did.
Good.
So it's sort of a nutshell of, so pretty much every value prop you hear when you see the marketing materials did touch base and hit and have advantage for us.
And obviously that's translated over the 20 some odd years that you've been going through that, is experiencing that positive atmosphere and all of the services that are sort of incorporated with it. That again, it's great to hear that it's been a successful route for you to go. I know you mentioned that you had Rostie and Associates were doing some recruiting for you. So you've been in the position where you've been looking at new candidates to fill roles within the company that you're working for. For all of the young graduates and individuals who are looking to get into the tech industry, what would you say is the ideal candidate, or what are you looking for in a candidate when you reach out to a recruiting firm who are going to bring you these candidates to fill that role?
So when I talk to John, Cynthia, and Pam a lot about candidates, what floats to the top for me is I want candidates that have got a high degree of ethics. I want candidates with a high degree of energy. And I want candidates that have great curiosity. I think if you have those 3 attributes, you're pretty well set up to do great things in your career. and it, you know, I look at it, you know, I think if you would talk to people that I work with, you'd find that I personally probably score pretty high on all three of those.
Right.
And it stood me well in my career to do that. And I know that for my children, in their technical careers, they also are recognized for the same personal attributes and values.
So would you say that you acted as essentially a great mentor, not only on the personal side of your life, but also on the professional side of your life with your children and directing them into the industry much the same way?
Yes.
And did you have somebody that you really looked up to when you were coming up as a young man that you could rely on the same way?
I did. I worked for a little Irishman. His name is Pat McGuire. He was the gentleman who hired me out of school in Algonquin. He mentored me through the first 5 years of my career. Then when I started my company, we kept in constant contact through that company startup phase. So he really, you know, for the first 10 years or so of my career, he really provided a strong mentorship throughout until I left the markets that we could run across each other regularly. When I moved to Montreal, we ended up parting ways a little bit just because of separation, just to make it work. But I still think about Pat often. And things that he told me still ring true today.
Good. What would probably be one thing that would stand out to you, maybe from Pat that he passed along to you, and in turn that you would pass on to somebody who is maybe just a fresh graduate coming out of school, as sort of just a piece of advice to sort of point them in the right direction?
I think you know, one of the big pieces of advice that Pat gave me was the value in planning. He would always say, one of the big things he said as a sales guy, you can plan to fail or you can fail to plan.
Yeah.
And it really drove the value of sitting down and I remember, you know, when I pretty much every year that I was a sales guy, I kicked club. And it came down to this: you get your quota at the beginning of the quarter, you get the products that are available, you get your pricing, and I would literally sit down and start at the top of the highest price point product I had, figure out how many customers I had in my patch that could buy that, put them at the top of the list. Then I'd move down to the next product and the next, right? And I would work a plan so that in the least amount of effort, I could get the maximum amount of revenue.
Right.
And I would focus on going after the maximum dollar value that I could hit effectively. That was sales effectiveness came from that. And you know, I did the same thing as I moved into a technology and marketing role. What are the activities? You know, we're just getting ready to enter Q4 2018, right? What are the activities that are going to impact this week, this month, this quarter, next quarter, and next year? Right? Because you need to have not only a short-term horizon, but you need a mid and a long-term horizon.
Of course.
Because if you don't make your investments across all of them, then you have a significant challenge.
Right. Kevin, on behalf of everybody at the Rostie Group, I must tell you that it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. I do thank you and wish you nothing but the best going forward.
Okay, thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.